So let me pass it to His Excellency, Mr. Peter Mohan Pieris, the permanent representative of Sri Lanka, and also our president of the 21st session of the High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Director Dima Al-Khatib, for inviting me to this conference. I commend the co-chairs of the group of friends of the Voluntary National Reviews, that the permanent mission of the Kingdom of Morocco to the United Nations, and the permanent mission of the Philippines, particularly to you, Ambassador Legdemeo, and to Ambassador Hilale, who have been close friends of ours, as well as the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, for organizing this event today on the sidelines of the high-level political forum on sustainable development. Of course, I also do thank the high officials seated on the right of us for being present with us, and we have been looking forward to hearing your inputs. Distinguished delegates, the alignment of the SGDs and the global commitments with national policies is recognized, perhaps, as I won't be wrong to say, Director, as a core requirement in the SDGs implementation discourse. In this whole discussion of ours, I don't think you can separate one from the other. So, however, it remains, however, a challenge, I say, to incorporate the 2030 agenda into national, subnational, and local plans and policies. As we all know, we've been in government long enough to know we can't probably manage our own policies, but incorporating the SDGs in our policies is yet presents another challenge of a peculiar kind. So a review of the VNRs suggests that all of the countries in Asia have basically a aligned development plan with the global agenda. Of course, we do take cognizance of what's going on right around the world, right? Therefore, the alignment framework has to be taken into account, if I'm right. The capacities and levels of development of different countries and in their contextual realities. Let's be completely honest about that. In fact, I've gone to the extent of saying that we cannot actually set a benchmark for the whole world in achieving the SDGs. And perhaps we won't be too disappointed if we didn't actually achieve those benchmarks, if we fix the benchmarks having regard to our national competencies. In other words, what's necessarily good for the United States won't be probably good for Sri Lanka. We probably are not we are not similarly circumstanced, if I was to put it that way. So existing policy actions towards attaining the SDGs need to be integrated into medium, long-term frameworks to ensure policy continuity. So I really don't believe that although we are fretting about the fact that we won't get there in time, I still am optimistic that we can, if we tweak this whole approach away from this very traditional way in which we have been approaching it for the last, how many years? 8 years, right? So in the outcome document, so that's something that I would probably leave you to think about. I've canvassed this with many people. I don't, of course, find much favor because they don't kind of probably take the trouble to think about it. But if you really think about it, in other words, I always say it's like running a race between two clear, distinct countries, one starch eating and the other protein eating. It's like that. There's a big difference. The classification is pretty clear. So what's the upshot of this? So in the outcome document of the second high-level United Nations Conference on South-South Cooperation, or BAPA +40, member states recognized the importance of South and Triangular cooperation in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as perhaps being a trusted mechanism for leveraging each other's experience in underlying what works, identifying persistent impediments that are staring in the face, making evidence-based responses, including facilitating exchange of resources and knowledge that addresses needs only countries of similar development pathways, I say, enjoy, and they are close partners who can understand the environment in which we are trying to implement this process. So that is another thought that I would probably leave you with to ponder over. Now, as president of the 21st session of the high-level Committee on South-South Cooperation, which DMA continues to bless me with all the time and reminds me about, I feel rather embarrassed at the fact because I know so little of South-South Cooperation. I'm learning fast, of course. And I'm compelled to because she keeps on insisting that I am the president of the high-level Committee on South-South Cooperation, right? I'm happy to witness the launch today, of course, of the handbooks to support integrating South-South and Triangular cooperation in the voluntary national reviews. So in a practical response to members' states' demand, and that it was what it is, expressed in our 2020 HLPF ministerial declaration, having regard to that, and notably in our resolution A/RES/77/185, we have encouraged the United Nations entities to support developing countries in integrating development cooperation perspectives, including in particular South-South cooperation into the preparation and presentation of our VNRs on sustainable development. So to conclude all this, at the core of our VNR mechanism, we see is what we need to appreciate is the call for partnerships and collaborations, without which we probably get nowhere. We know, and we need to appreciate the fact that no single entity can take forward all the goals and targets on their own. No man is an island, so to speak, in this particular game. This handbook, which I've had the pleasure of perusing, right, will be of assistance in the review and reporting process for inclusive decision and making priority settings. Now, making it therefore possible for all stakeholders and partners to work together in a systematic way on the same priorities. So, my dear friends, we have undergone these challenges and gained these insights from our own experiences, for example, in Sri Lanka, in our first VNR in 2018, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, and in our second in 2022, last year, as we address the multi-dimensional impact of the pandemic. From our own experience, we have come to rethink the VNR process itself. We have learned a lot in that process, more as a collective effort to understand challenges and co-design, I say, strategies and policies, and as a new way for working towards together with stakeholders such as yourselves who are here. So we are looking forward to that partnership. Integrating South-South cooperation, therefore, in the VNRs, in my considered and I'm convinced of the fact, can facilitate the sharing of experiences, the best practices that we all have, the lessons that we have learned, the mobilization of multi-stakeholder support and partnerships with a view to accelerate development impacts. Now, as this handbook aims to support the member states in advancing the integration of South-South and Triangular cooperation with the VNR, providing step-by-step guidance with good practices examples, we believe that with the implementation of this handbook, that more VNRs that will be presented to the HLPF in the coming years with the aid of this, there won't be we would certainly encourage them in the coming years, integrate, it will bring closer together South-South and triangular cooperation perspectives during their preparation and presentation. As we have heard in many discussions this week here in New York, in the UN, and we will hear in the coming weeks, in the last whole week of the HLPF. Member states, particularly the Global South, are making tremendous effort to galvanize action to meet the 2030 agenda and overcome the setbacks, I say, caused by the global pandemic and the deteriorating international security environment. So within a short time left for achieving the SDGs, I don't believe it is that short. I would still like to be, as I said, optimistic. We need to redouble, in my view, our efforts to accelerate the process, starting with more coordinated, better informed, and more strategic responses within and between our countries. Support towards this effort goes out through South-South partnerships and the UN initiative, such as the launch of this handbook, is, in my view, invaluable and reminds us that we are working as a collective. That perhaps is a manifestation of that. In conclusion, I commend all those who had a hand in the development, in the putting together of this handbook, and the office of, and your office for effectively carrying out its mandate, and all who responded to the call by member states and by the Secretary General to pursue a transformational shift, if I was to call it, to revitalize the SDGs and build the world envisioned in the 2030 agenda. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellency, thank you very much for this powerful statement, highlighting a lot of those core messages that I wanted to highlight. So you saved me the time. But it also speaks a lot from your country experience and the impact and the relevance of having such a handbook that will be, you know, not only in terms of tracking the progress, as His Excellency was saying, but also a way of trying to harmonize the way we look at South-South cooperation and to make sure that it becomes part and parcel of our development ecosystem at the national level, but also in terms of the global thinking. So let me